everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Faith Journey. If you're new here, welcome. I'm super happy that you are tuned in and listening with all of us. If this is not your first time, I am so grateful for you. I am really grateful for you, and I hope that the things that I've been chatting about have been interesting and helpful to you. And you can see I am not in my usual living room. I am visiting some family and just enjoying the summertime a little bit, which I am so grateful for. I just love the sea. I love it so much. I grew up with summers by the beach, like really hot Italian summers, and so this just feels so nice. It is very windy though, so don't mind if you are watching me, don't mind my hair going everywhere. We're literally not here for that. We're here for God and to talk about Him and to talk about faith journeys. If you're new here, actually, my name is Camilla. Maybe I should introduce myself. And this is a space where I just document my faith journey as someone that is a relatively new Christian. I became a Christian in October of 2024 and have just been on this journey of documenting what God has been doing and just chatting through it, sharing insights and lessons that He's been teaching me, with just a hope of making whoever is on the other end of this microphone feel less alone and more encouraged and just a little bit more seen wherever you are on your faith walk, whether you've got faith in your life or not. Anyone and everyone is welcome here. My heart behind this episode is really to just create a space that's kind of like almost a sanctuary, like a place where we can just reflect and pause a little bit, and just be reminded that faith is not always loud or polished or perfect, but it's real, it's growing, and I think it's so worth talking about and giving God all the glory through that. And in this podcast, I kind of talk about what my experience has been following Jesus as someone that didn't grow up Christian, as someone that didn't grow up with Christian family or friends. And I speak a lot about healing with Jesus and what that has looked like for me and what that looks like still. I speak about hope, the hope that God gives us, and just the beauty and the challenge actually that just comes with having God in your life as well, especially when your path maybe doesn't look like everybody else's. And today's episode is a bit of a special one because I just want to talk about opening up to others about your faith, if you call yourself a Christian or if you are like on a spiritual journey and so on, but I think in particular if you do know Jesus and maybe the people around you don't, and I know that can feel isolating a little bit and maybe a bit scary as well. Maybe your family isn't part of your spiritual life and your spiritual walk. Maybe your friends aren't, or don't know Jesus yet, or maybe they've only known Him through a particular lens or through misunderstandings or pain or hurt, and maybe you've come to faith alone, like me, and are kind of navigating, walking your faith boldly as well in your life, and you're kind of wondering, how do I begin to live this life with faith? Doesn't mean shouting it necessarily, it doesn't mean like going to people and like shoving the Bible down their throat. Like, that's not the approach I think that I at least have found helpful. And I think what I want to speak into in particular is not even as much about like preaching the gospel, but more in your personal life, when you come to the realization, when you come to accept Jesus into your heart and as the Lord of your life, how do you then, start to integrate that with maybe the life that you've had before? If that's you, I just want to say, I see you, and there's so many people like us going through that. And so, in this episode, I just want to obviously share my journey. That's what I know, and that's what I can talk into. every single one of our journeys are different. And so I really want to honor that as well. Take what serves you, leave what doesn't. I want to talk about what it looked like for me and what it is looking like, to go from kind of quietly searching for God to then walking closely with Jesus, to slowly then learning to be really open about it as well. And actually, I'm going to be really honest right now. I am on this balcony and I'm in my family home. My family's downstairs and I've just shut the door. People could come in at any time, and anyone that's outside in the garden might hear me just talking about this and talking about Jesus and talking about my experience relating to my family and to my friends. And so it is making me a little bit like, oh, should I really be doing this now? And so on. But I just really felt like this is the right time, and it's the perfect time actually for me to be doing what I would otherwise be doing at home, which is talking to all of you. So when we talk about, sharing our faith, it's not for performance, it's not to prove anything to anyone, but it's really to walk in truth and to love others really, really well, or trying to love others really, really well when doing it. I really want to make this episode kind of tangible, so I will be giving you some of the more practical takeaways, I guess, that I have been learning in my walk, the process of getting there, the grace for the in-between moments, the fears that maybe come up at some point, and then, as I said, the practical steps that kind of helped me. The quiet courage as well. It takes courage to share your story with others, but there's so much power there. And so take a breath. Let's all take a breath. And just remind ourselves that the Lord is here. I've prayed into this. Maybe you want to pause and just pray. Just invite the Holy Spirit and just, center yourself. This is a safe space. I really, really hope that these episodes can feel like a safe space for you. My family, my parents, we don't live in the same country. So we also have that barrier, physical barrier of, them not seeing my daily life and us just catching up, over the phone, or when we get to see each other every however many months in between. And so that also is challenging. And it's also challenging, with friends, maybe some of my childhood best friends that don't live where I live. And so it's that same sort of dynamic there. If you also are living abroad, not where your family or your kind of friends of origin are, then you might relate to this even more. So anyway, I think a good place to start is just when I was thinking about this is when I started following Jesus, which it felt like something sacred had sort of been planted in me. And it felt like it was something so fragile and so holy, and I didn't announce it. I didn't know how, and I kept it really close to my heart. And that was the case when I came to faith in October of last year, but also when I was not walking with Jesus, but I was still on this spiritual journey and navigating through different faiths and just being really deep into spirituality and all sorts of stuff. I feel like people around me 2 years ago might have sensed that, a year and a half ago. So they might have sensed that I was kind of on a spiritual search of sorts, even before getting to Jesus, that was something in me that was craving that was shifting. But only a few of them really knew what that meant, but also how deeply I was kind of struggling mentally and physically as well, but also how much I was being transformed before I gave my life to Jesus and ever since then, really. And so I remember, and I said this on the podcast before, the first couple of times that I would go to church, honestly, the first couple of months, I would go really quietly. I remember really the first times, 4 or 5 times maybe, I would do this thing where I would look around and see if there was anyone that I knew maybe, or that knew me, that saw me going to church. And I was scared of people, I think, putting judgment on me, and really scared of what they would have thought, and because I didn't have things figured out. And I don't have things figured out now, but I know that Jesus is God, and I've got that nailed down after a long search. I wasn't necessarily ashamed because I was still learning, I think, how to live with faith in my life, with the fact that I was drawn to Jesus and that Jesus was like calling me to him in a way that was so real, that was so it was so personal, it was so intimate, it was so holy that it wasn't for the world to know yet, you know. And it took me a few months really, and this might be different for all of us, but it took me a while to like really then get more comfortable with that idea. I was just, I think, learning, you know, and it's a walk, and I still am like learning how to live authentically and openly, not just with God, but with others as well. And so, if you are in this sort of earlier stage, this very sacred in between space, I have, a few things I want to share. Number one is I wrote down like, let your roots grow deep before you worry about being seen. And yeah, the first stage, like in my experience, the first stage is intimacy with God, is intimacy with Jesus, is spending time with Jesus in the morning, during the day, whenever you have the time, being in scripture, reading the Bible, learning about the nature of God, praying, you know, starting to like get comfortable with opening yourself up to God and really letting him in. You don't need to rush, you know, to be understood. Just focus on being with God. If we don't cultivate that time, that presence, that intimacy with Jesus, it's going to be so hard to live our lives in a way that glorify him and in a way that, you know, spreads light and joy and his love. Yeah, let him just shape, you know, who you're becoming before others try and like name that for you. My second point is to just live your faith out. And this is something like one of the main things that I really try and do. Like when I didn't feel maybe comfortable and wasn't openly, you know, out with my faith, let's say, I was just living the way of Jesus and like what it looked like, what that looked like what does it mean to live following Jesus in my day-to-day life? How much more love can I pour into people? How much more can I serve? How much more generous can I be? And maybe it starts with, you know, maybe just, if someone asks you, what are you doing on Sunday? Say, I went to church actually. And I know that's a big step, but that was also the second thing that kind of helped me. Doing your things, just living your life, whether, you know, that involves going to church, or maybe you read your Bible and then you leave it where you would leave it, like on, I don't know, a bookshelf, and then you just leave your Bible out, or, you know, just talking about maybe a peace that you've been experiencing, whatever it might be. Just let your life speak, so that when people look at you and look at, you know, the love that you have, look at the joy that you have, look at the peace that you have in a world like ours, where I feel like that is kind of rare sometimes, people will start to have questions and they will start to come up to you and be like, what, where are you, like, what's going on here? And you can just point straight up to Jesus, you know. And there's so much more to say about this. There's so much scripture about this. Yeah, there's a verse I think that's like, be ready to justify, you know, the hope that you live with. Actually, I want to search that verse up because it's so good and it just relates. Yeah, so it's 1 Peter 3:15. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. And like, I feel like at some point I might want to talk about just sharing the gospel in a way that's a little bit more active, and something that I've been experimenting with, and like it's been kind of fun to do it with God. That little verse is kind of what I was saying. Just live your faith out, and people will recognize that, and trust me, they'll come and ask questions. Then number 3 is just being honest about anything that might be coming up. You know, when you're thinking about being open about your faith, you are allowed to feel unsure. If that's how you're feeling, it's okay to be nervous about it. God knows, like the Lord, he knows your heart. He knows everything about you. So just bring that to the feet of Jesus. Just let him into that. He doesn't shame it, you know, he just meets it. And then you can just pray into, you know, just asking the Spirit to like empower you and equip you to be able to do that, to live openly, and to just share what God has been doing in your life. And number 4 kind of ties these, and I wrote, let love be your motive. instead of pressure, instead of fear, instead of expectations, but just love, like for like just the love of God, and yeah, your love for people as well. Like people are longing for love, people are longing to have peace and in their heart, and we've got this beautiful thing that's our faith, and it's our relation with Jesus and the way he cares for us so much. And it would be such a disservice to others to not lovingly share that in the most respectful way. I feel like at some point I kind of graduated from the stage of feeling like I was living a double life in a way, and there came a point where I just couldn't contain it anymore. I just really couldn't. And for me, it was quite, maybe, yeah, I think it was around December. So it came to faith in October. December time was when I started to feel this, yeah, like the love of Jesus had gone from like a whisper to a big flame, and flames, like, they're not easy to hide. And suddenly I kind of noticed how I saw the world differently, how my habits changed, how I was being convicted, not out of guilt, but like out of healing and out of God's love. And the more I then walked with God, the more I felt almost a bit of a divide between the life that I was living on the outside and then the transformation that was really happening on the inside, and in my private moments, in the privacy of my home as well. And I wasn't necessarily living like a double life, but I was learning to integrate what living my faith out actually meant. And I'm still doing that every single day. I don't know if you ever really stop that. And just learning as well how to like show people this new part of me, not with pressure, again, never out of pressure, but with peace, like with the peace of God, and just letting him into this situation. And I want to encourage you, if you're also in that kind of tension, or you feel this pull, and like it's this love that overflows, it means that you're growing, it means that you're being stretched, and it means that God is doing something in you. And so my advice is just surrender that and just follow what the Lord is saying. There's a story in Luke 8 that I really love, and it's Jesus. He heals a man who had been suffering for years, and the man, he's like really overwhelmed and grateful, and he begs to go with Jesus. And Jesus looks at him, and in Luke 8:39, Jesus looks at the man and he says, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." Jesus didn't say, go and preach and have a sermon on every day, or, make them believe or whatnot. He just said, go home and tell your story. And that's what it means to be open, to tell how God has been moving in your life, what he's done, and to show people what he is doing in you in like a really real, in a very personal, loving way as well. Your story is so powerful. And the more I've been realizing that about my own story, and it's never to glorify us, that's something really important. It goes without saying, but it's never out of pride, like, oh yes, I've got such a great story. No, it's like I was in the pits of like shame and of, mental health issues and just so much struggle, and this is how God has been redeeming my life, and so all the glory goes to him. One of the most important steps for me that I wrestled with for a while was actually releasing the first episode of this podcast, which is my testimony. And if you haven't listened to, if you don't know my story, then you're more than welcome to go and listen. It's just, it was like a moment that felt like I was handing people a key to the most really tender, transformative parts of my life. And not everyone had the context, of what I had been walking through in those years, what I've been walking through last year, literally the most challenging years of my life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it, because of distance, because of just my own ways of coping, with things and mechanisms. And so this podcast, this episode in particular, the first episode, became a way of almost saying, if you've been wondering what's been going on with me, this is it, and this is the door, and you're welcome to come in. And I wasn't trying to convince anyone, it was just an invitation to just almost as if it was like a coffee with someone, a catch up. And it was just my story, of God's love for me and of how he found me and of how he's been redeeming everything in my life. And just an invitation to listen and to understand and to see the story that God is writing in me. And maybe, you're the only Christian in your house. Maybe you are the only one in your friend group, the only one whose life is being quietly but really, really radically changing. And I wrote all these things out because that was me, and that is me sometimes as well. Still, like, most of my friends are not Christians. I mean, I'm so thankful to God, literally so thankful for the community that he's been slowly planting me in, for the friends that I've been making, for, the mentors that I've found and I am still finding. But the majority of my friends aren't Christian, my family isn't Christian. And so I'm still really walking that. I'm still really early in my journey. And so let me just tell you this. Let's just say this for me and for you. We are not behind. You're not behind. There's not a timeline on how we do this, okay? You're not strange if you feel any sort of feelings about sharing your faith, and you're never alone. If anything, you've got me in it too. So I hope that's reassuring in some way. But more than that, God sees you. Like, he sees you, he knows you, and he's so close to you. And he's so proud. Like, I think God is so proud when we just start to really live boldly for him and not trying to please anyone else but him, and walking, even if you're walking silently, you're still walking with him. And that's really all that counts. I also think that there's such a beauty in us being in maybe more secular spaces, when you go from not having faith and then having faith in your life and trusting Jesus with your life, but still being, say, in like your job, like a secular job, or having friends that aren't Christians, or again, your family, or whatever it might be, like still being in your pre-Jesus, pre-finding Jesus life and situation. Maybe some of those things will change, and maybe some of those friends will change, some of the ways you do things will change. But also, I really think, and this is something that I'm not going to talk a lot into because I'm still really walking through it, but I feel like the Lord has been just teaching me a lot about how he places us in these situations. I think there's a reason. It's nothing is by accident with God. Like, nothing is by accident. The fact that I was placed in a family that maybe isn't Christian, I don't think it's by accident. I think he's doing something through my family and in my family, and he's using me. And my biggest prayer has just been, just use me, use my voice and use my life, just speak to me and test my obedience. I think that's the same with my friendships. And I was actually so surprised when I started to open up about this, when I published that episode. I definitely received no comments, and no acknowledgement, which is completely okay. Again, I'm not doing it and I didn't publish that episode, and I don't share my faith and how I live to get the approval of other people. I've also seen friends who maybe, I've related to, and our friendship was also maybe getting closer because of maybe some struggles that were similar, like we were helping each other in that way. And if you've got, people like that are also facing some issues, like when you share the way God has been helping you and the way God has been moving in your life, I have found people to be so curious and so open to that and to listening. And I think the biggest thing I've learned throughout all of this as well is just, we don't know. Like, I think I was coming into this with, okay, no one else understands me and no one else knows Jesus, and I'm the only one, and that was almost like so presumptuous of me, because I've got no idea. Like, I was keeping my faith journey so private. I've got no idea where people are, with their relationship with God, whether they have God in their life or not, whether they're questioning or not, and whether they actually really, really need you in that moment to speak truth and to speak your story and to share your story. And God placed you in that friendship for that reason. That God placed you in that family for that reason. And again, I don't really know much else of like what that means, but I really think there's something there that I'm seeing, that I'm feeling, and that I'm hearing God speaking into, and I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited to see like what the Lord will do with this. And so I hope that was encouraging to you. I guess my key takeaways, I've got 5 takeaways of all of this, that I've shared so far. Number 1, give yourself grace. Like, you are learning how to live with Christ. You are learning how to live with this light that's now inside of you, this light that is yourself through Jesus. And it's a process, and God is so patient with you. Just keep bringing everything to him and keep being in intimacy with him, in that secret place with him, and then share your story from that space, from that like grounding of love and of peace that we get from God. Then point number 2, I said, start small, but just kind of start somewhere. When you feel this urge, this push, and it, like, if you feel it in your heart, this burning sensation that you can't contain, all of a sudden it might feel really overwhelming, but a very small step of openness is so powerful, and it plants seeds into people. And yeah, seeds of curiosity. Number 3, your story is so sacred and glorifies God. You don't need to perform. Like, every single testimony, whether you didn't grow up with faith, whether you grew up Christian, whether you've had an encounter with the Spirit that changed your whole life, or whether it was a really, really actually quiet moment of realization and of like peace in your heart that led you to Christ. Whatever your story is, one is not better than the other. They're all so beautiful, and they're all just glorifying God and all of the goodness, of who he is and of how he moves. So yeah, just share your story, basically. And then number 4, be gentle and be discerning. Not everyone will understand straight away, and that is okay. I think for me, at the very beginning, it was coming to the realization that like maybe my parents don't understand, the depth of what I'm feeling towards God. Or maybe my friends won't understand why I go to church every Sunday, and why maybe I don't engage in certain things anymore. And that's okay. Don't seek approval of the world, but just trust God and seek God's will for your life first. Let your life speak, And then number 5 is just learn to be open and authentic rather than performative. So again, this is not about pressure. It's about truth. It's about being so real, just being real, being authentic. Like, we're real people with real emotions, and faith journeys are messy sometimes, and I think that's beautiful, but that's really hard as well. And so life is hard sometimes too, and so let's just be real, let's just be authentic, and just share God-shaped truth. I think that's all I have. Yeah, so no, I wasn't hiding, circling back to that time, like my first kind of times going to church and looking around myself. I wasn't hiding because I was ashamed. I wasn't silent because I was afraid necessarily. I was learning. How to live life with a faith that was honest, and I still am. A faith that is honest, that is rooted in love, that is sustainable, that is true. And I'm still learning, and I'm still asking God every day, like, how can I be more open today than I was yesterday? Open myself up. But how can I do that, Lord? Like, what is it? What are those obstacles that are kind of keeping me? And the Lord will reveal that to you in his timing. And I just think that's because being open about your faith doesn't mean like necessarily shouting it. As I said before, it's gentle, it's respectful, and it just means that we're not shrinking back from it. We're not hiding. we're definitely not lying about it. To you that's listening, that kind of courage, I feel like God can do so much with that. So much for his kingdom, and to just glorify him so much more than you can imagine and that you can even comprehend. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here and for listening to my story as well. I hope this encouraged you. If this episode spoke to your heart in any way, which I really hope, I hope you've been feeling, the presence of God wherever you are. Maybe you want to, share it with someone else who's walking this journey, someone who maybe feels like they're the only one right now. Let's just be more like Jesus, and let's just share the love of God and our stories. Until next time, stay rooted in his love and stay so close to him. He loves you so much, and I'm sending you so much love, and summer vibes as well. summer warmth. Until next episode, be well, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.